Hello, this is Ode from the Game Builders, coming to you from Katerleuchten headquarters in the beautiful Eifel in Germany, and I want to introduce you to our upcoming experts game, Planta Nubo, which is Esperanto for cloudy gardens, and the game is set in a solar punk environment, and I want to introduce you to the main mechanics of the game. The story behind Planta Nubo is that the climate crisis has crushed the whole planet, and the arbors, which are the huge trees here, you can see on the cover, they came to our aid, and we produced a lot of oxygen to save our environment, and we as mankind understood that we need to help them in order to produce more oxygen. And this is basically the aim of the game. The person who produces the most oxygen will win the game. Okay, so what you are doing in this game is that you have your personal platform here, and this is basically the treetop, my personal treetop on one of the huge arbors here, and I'm trying to build a garden here on top of the tree and plant flower beds in order to get flowers as resources, turn these flowers into green energy, and after I turn these flowers into energy, I want to place these these forest tiles on them. So let me introduce you how you are going to plant flower beds. So there is an action grid here in the middle of the game, and let me just say that I set up the game as a two-player game, but we have even more actions tiles here in the game. So this is an action grid that will be different depending on the player count, but there is more, and this is basically just a setup for two players. If you perform different actions in this game, you will gain these flower beds. And this is a tile placing game where you plant your flower beds in your growing area. And if you do so, there are different bonuses that you cover then. And for example, I will cover this small bot icon here with this, so I will get a bot charge for my garden bot. And this garden bot will help me during the game gardening here on my platform. And as well, I will get yellow flowers, and each of the spaces of this flower bed will get a yellow flower. So this is the way how I get flowers, and by placing these polyomino tiles into my growing area, you can see that the growing area has two different shades. So there's a dark brown area, which is available to me at the beginning of the game. And if I want to use even more space, I need to unblock the lighter brown areas by removing these barricades from the game, and so I get more space and even more powerful placing bonuses when I build flower beds over there. So this is basically what I do. I want to generate resources by placing these tiles into my growing area. And the next step for me in the game would be that I want to transfer these flowers to the airships that are here on the game board, because these airships are holding freight containers. And I want to supply these freight containers by performing various actions. And I will get green energy for supplying these airships. So for instance, if I place those two cubes over here, I will get a total of 5 green energy, and energy is being counted with my energy die. Around my treetop there is an energy track, and by gaining 5 energy, my die moves 4 spaces. The thing is that I need only to count these green lit up energy icons, so I can skip over these black ones because they are not powered as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps with my die. Every time I come across a plug-in tile that is connected to a card, I will power up this card with a token, in this case a standby token, but I have also a different kind of card. So these, if I come along this space, I can put one battery marker on this card. But I have to be here at least or passing along this place in order to power up the card. So this is what I'm doing in this game. I want to have flowers. I want to convert them into green energy in order to be able to move my energy die. If I use these special action spaces that are pre-printed on my player board, that are also connected to the energy track, I can gain new cards. And here on the game board, there are new cards that I can put to my platform. So every time I get a new card, I can choose freely from this display of cards, and I place it here next to my board. I have 12 different slots where the cards can go, but every time I do so, I have to include this card by placing a plugin tile into my energy track. And also when placing a card, it also gets supplied right away with a token of the kind of the card. So by placing new cards, which is basically possible through these special actions, this track will get longer. So the more cards I have, the more beneficiary actions I can do, but also the longer the way to the next card will get. So this is the energy track and how it works, and this is how the growing area works in this game. So let me now introduce you to the second main mechanism of the game, which is a worker placement mechanism. And there is a certain phase in a game round, which is called the tool phase, and I have 4 different tools that I can use to perform various actions. So for instance, if I want to place my shovel action tile, I have to place it between 2 action tiles, and it always has to be connected to a blueprint. So we have 2 different kinds of action spaces here. So we have the blueprints that offer various actions for the game that you can perform, and also we have the flower bed actions. And when I place one of the tiles here, I can now choose one of the 2 actions to perform. So if I want to do this, I do the action that I printed on this tile, or I can get the topmost tile of this flower bed stack and place it somewhere in my area where I can where I'm allowed to place it, maybe over here. And now I will get as well new resources. There is 4 different tool tiles, and I will place 3 of them in order to perform actions here in this phase. But after doing this, the next player's turn is now. And the problem for the next player is now that next to this blueprint, there cannot be another shovel because there's only one tool of a kind next to a blueprint. So if this player wants to perform this action now, they have to use a different tool. And now my problem, if I'm performing my next turn, is that I cannot put a hammer next to this one or this one. So if I want to use my hammer, it has to go somewhere else. But I can always use a different tool, and now I can perform one of those 2 actions. Once per game round, I can do overtime, and I have to pay 2 bot energy on my garden bot rondel here. And let's just assume I have enough to perform this action here for the example. I would spend 2 garden bots in order to perform both actions, but I have to flip this tile that reminds me of that I already did the overtime, that basically I can do 2 actions in 1 turn. Yes, so let me introduce you a little bit to the actions that are possible here. I already explained the flower beds, which is basically the main source of resources in this game. But I can also use the blueprint actions to do various stuff in this game. So for instance, we have the delivery actions, which I use to supply the airships here on the game board. Basically, this means I can convert my flowers into green energy to move my die. And there's 2 different, in this 2-player game, there's 2 different of them. With this action, I can supply 3 different airships, and with this action I can supply 2 different airships, and I can always deliver 3 of my flowers with this and gain energy from it. With using this action, I can get my personal freight container, And I can use one of those that are from the queue that are in line. If those airships, freight containers in the airships are completed, they will get removed and the new will appear from the queue. But I can always choose if I'm using this action icon to get my personal freight container. And after I performed my action using a tool, I can now deliver to this freight container once, and I have to do it from left to right. So there's a sequence I have to stick to, which needs considerate planning to do so. But in this case, I will also get 1 energy and move my die in order to, yes, get more energy, get new cards, power up my cards, and you basically get my engine running. There's an action that allows me to discard these barricades in order to get more space here, to get more flower beds even into the play. And there is a special action that lets me use these single bed tiles, which is basically, they have no color, they have only 1 space, but I can place them anywhere I want, limited by what I already have unblocked. And if I place it over here, I can put any cube on it. Then I want to introduce you to this section here on my small tool shack. This is basically some requirements I have to complete in this game in order to perform this action. I can raise my arbor level, and for this action I have to have 5 yellow flower spaces in my growing area. And if I perform this action, I can move up my house in order to get income in oxygen, and also perform the action that I just covered, which is a bonus action of a very strong kind. Which means in this case I can get any flower bed I want. For instance, I just take this one and puzzle it here in my growing area and get even more resources. So this is basically what we're doing in the worker placement phase. So this is one of my player turns. I place one of my tools, I deliver to my personal freight containers, and at the end of my player turn I can do 1 free standby action. And this means I can use one of the standby tokens that are on my cards, discard them, and perform the action that is on my card. And the more cards I have, the more interesting actions come into my play, and I can use them in order to perform powerful actions. But also, only in this step of my player turn, I can use the special actions that are pre-printed on my board. If I have a standby marker here, I can use it now to get a new card. And we have a lot of cards in this game. All cards are different. These cards are basically actions that I can do to fuel my engine. And we have another kind of card that gives me bonuses by the end of the game if I put them into my playing area. Also, of course, connected to the energy track. These cards are scored at the end of the game, and in this case it will give me extra points for having yellow spaces in my growing area. So after placing 3 of my tool tiles, the worker placement phase is over, and we are going to the crafting phase, which is here on the game board. We have 4 different crafts that can be used, and depending on the worker placement tile, on the tool tile that you have left after placing all the tools to perform actions, you put them next to the connected crafter and perform the action that is on this tile. So everybody does this, and this is basically what you have left over you will use to do the bonus actions, which also means you need to consider while placing the tool tiles which of those craft actions you want to take after the worker placement phase. The next phase, which is the 3rd phase of a game round, means that I can place a forest tile. And for the forest tiles, they don't go on the growing area ground. You have to place them on top of emptied fields. So I can use my flower pots to store certain flowers, but most of the time you want to deliver them to get more energy. Oh, I don't have an example here. Let's just assume I already got rid of those. So now I have an area of 2 by 2, and I can place one of my personal forests here on these tiles, so I cannot leave any gaps here. In this case, my forest will allow me to upgrade my die to the next number, which also means this card, these battery cards, they have a trigger, in this case upgrading my personal die, and now I can perform the action that is printed on the card, which means I get as many garden bot power depending on how many battery tokens are on the card. And in difference from the standby tokens, they have to be discarded when using the cards. These tokens are not discarded. The card will get powered every time I come across this space on the track, and it gets even more powerful during the game. So there are two different kinds of action cards. Some of them need to be activated by actions, some of them are passive and work every time you do the action that is in this bluish area. Okay, so this is how I place my forests. I have 3 or smaller forests that I can place from my personal supply, but there's also even bigger forests that are harder to place because you need more space here. You need to get rid of the resources because you cannot just discard them, you have to use them. And this is one of the things that you're trying to do in the game, because forests are producing much oxygen in this game. And as I already said, oxygen will give you, who produces the most oxygen will win this game. After the forest phase, there will be an income phase. And the income is basically printed here on the arbor level. Also, the value of my die will give me income, and some of the forests also will give me income. As if I place this here in my playing area, I will get 1 energy and 2 oxygen as income. So this is basically 1 game round, and I hope you all got a good idea about the game. Let me just mention now that we also have a solo mode in the game. We have solo tiles. You will play against a solo bot in this game. And we have different difficulty levels. So on the flip side of the player boards, there is a solo bot board. In this case, this is difficulty level 1. But on the flip sides of the other boards, there are even more difficult solo versions of this game. And if you like to play games solo, this might be very interesting for you. Let me just put a disclaimer here, because this is only a pre-production copy of Planta Nubo, which was supplied to us by the manufacturer. So if you want to come by our booth at Spiel in Essen, you can see the game for yourself. You can try it out. We will explain it to you. And the game will even look very better because it's produced in a very nice way. But this is only a pre-production copy, which was manufactured with a laser cutter. So it has all the art, but it's not as beautiful as it will be in the future. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in Essen.
to forget, you can pre-order.
It's very important to pre-order.
Yes.